deepening the sophistication there from a high performance mindset perspective. And I think we did that really well at Feyenoord. Again, we really got into the definitions of a high performance mindset and help as many individuals as possible to have their own mental playbook around this high performance mindset. I think that's vital.
Merely a donkey, Nicholas. Merely a donkey. Cut.
Competence and confidence, and they go hand in hand. If a coach is fearful, then they've got to build their competence. They've got to learn about coaching, their craft. They've got to learn about sports science. They've got to learn about sports psychology. They've got to learn about human behavior. Ultimately, if that's going to be your life passion in your job, but from a coach's perspective, you refuse to look at the complexity of human beings and you refuse to look at the complication of elite level sport, then you're going to have minimal competence. And that's going to reflect in your coaching practice. That's going to reflect in your tactics. That's going to reflect in how you deal with the human beings in front of you. And so subsequently, I would always say fear, that you turn down the volume of fear, not completely, because you never do. And fear can be useful. Of course, it's a driver. But you manage your experience of fear by developing your competence. And to be competent, you have to be open-minded. That doesn't mean you have to be an open vessel that accepts everything. I mean, if I turn my attention here to Arne Slot, for example, and I want to be respectful of what I say here, but one thing I would always say about Arne is that he was both open-minded and closed-minded. He had that neat balance. When I was introduced to him for the first time and I delivered a presentation to him and his coaching staff, he would have sat there fearful because I was being introduced from the perspective of, we want Dan to work with our team, our players. And so this is his livelihood. Of course he's going to be scared. Of course he's going to have a fear. So what does he do? He asks me tough questions. He checks and challenges me, which he absolutely did do. And I don't think we agreed upon everything. And that's absolutely fine. But I would suggest he hit that sweet spot between being, okay, I'm going to be open to what you've got to say, but I'm also not going to accept absolutely everything that you say and bring everything into my coaching practice that you say.
It's that confidence in his competence, right?
He's got confidence in his competence, and his competence also drives his confidence. I would say fear is, like any good psychologist would say, fear is there. It's a good thing. We have to have fear. We have to have a brain that attunes to both threats and rewards. So threats are there, and we're going to have a response, and we've got to choose what we do with that response. And I think coaches have to be able to go, okay, well, I have to develop myself. I'm going to experience fear, but I've got to build my competence high enough to be able to sit with the fear and engage as a coach anyway. I sit with the fear, but I engage anyway. I build my competence. I sit with the fear. I engage. I deliver. I reflect. I tweak. In essence, I develop in action based on the actions that I execute. And so this is imperative. So I think it comes back to competence and confidence. And we really function in an age now in high performance sport where no longer can you get away with perhaps what historically coaches have gotten away with. That's not to suggest that old school mentalities can't help here and there, and it's not to suggest that overthinking doesn't exist. Of course, too complex and too complicated environment can damage performance and learning as much as, a well thought out environment, or an overly thought out environment and culture. But coaches do have to develop themselves. They really, really do.
And I think the overall sort of message is that you can't fix and maybe going back to the old school approach, you can't fix a mental sort of problem, which fear would be, with a physical solution. It's not, let's do another 20 runs of the pitch, or let's not do another 50 shots, because if you're trying to fix that, it's almost not addressing the root cause of the problem.
Well, yes, and no. I think that um, today, again, dwelling on this notion of taking a sophisticated lens of performance in sport, of engagement in sport, again, that participation piece and learning in sport, I do think we have to take a holistic viewpoint. And we have to look at intervening from a systemic perspective, so across a club, across a team, across an organization. Every word, every behavior, every department counts. And so from that perspective, I would say the gym is also the psychologist's couch, and the psychologist's couch is also the gym. I would say the training ground is the psychologist's couch, and the psychologist's couch is the training ground. Technique is mindset, and mindset is technique. Tactics are mindset, and mindset is tactics. Physicality is mindset, and mindset is physicality. So I'm being a bit cheeky in my response here, so please excuse me, because you made a point, and it's a point to make, and it's a good point to make, and I'm not saying it's a wrong point. I just think it's a slightly more nuanced and subtle thing, in as much as solutions lie broadly and deeply, systemically, rather than singularly, or from a reductionist perspective. We have to look at things systemically and holistically, rather than singularly and reductionist, if that makes sense.
That does make sense, and it sort of reminds me of sort of Ange Postecoglou's kind of a lot of what he speaks about. Obviously, we're Australian, so we have a particular focus on him.
Big ups, Ange Postecoglou, friend of the pod.
Yeah.
If I may interject, I'm a fan. I have to say, I've been very impressed, and again, I want to come across as respectful as possible here. I think as a sports psychologist, one of the things that frustrates me, and I mean this with the greatest respect, because I'm talking about people who've forgotten more about their sport than I'll ever know, and I always respect that. But I think there's a lot of BS out there when it comes to the psychological content and delivery from some head coaches, managers, if you want to call them that. There's a lot of funky pseudo-scientific stuff that's delivered that really either doesn't make much, sometimes works, no doubt about it, but either doesn't make much sense, or it just isn't repeatable. They're not repeatable messages. But Ange, I've been posting recently. There's always some good content coming out here. I mean, I posted one yesterday where he's in conversation with Rio Ferdinand, and he's talking. I happened to post the blooming wrong video, actually, that didn't go with the piece that I wrote, so I was tearing my hair out last night. But there was a wonderful video here with him talking with Rio Ferdinand, and they've highlighted a game and the behaviours of the players. And Ange is talking about, the passiveness of the players, and he's talking about how they're responding to the time in the game and the score, rather than just engaging in the game plan and playing on, he would say, perhaps the front foot. They're engaging with the time, and their behaviours and their actions are influenced by the time and the score, rather
not their
than
high performance mindset.
Rather than a high performance mindset, precisely the game plan wrapped in a high performance mindset. And again, I think so. I love the messages that Andrew. I'd like to. I feel I could help him from the perspective of really deepening the sophistication there from a high performance mindset perspective. And I think we did that really well at Feyenoord. Again, we really got into the definitions of a high performance mindset and help as many individuals as possible to have their own mental playbook around this high performance mindset. I think that's vital.